Hello, I'm ibxtoycat, and recently there was a post on the Minecraft subreddit saying, y'all doing giant portals wrong, this is how you do it, and then, in my opinion, one of the funniest nether portals I've seen in a while, because they made it a giant nether portal in terms of the obsidian and not the portal itself. I liked it a lot, but one of the things I found funny was one of the top comments was, I am very concerned about the time this would take to gather enough resources to actually create this in survival. It would have to take like a couple of hours, but this is a thing ibxtoycat should do. And you know what? I found that very offensive, that immediately they see something taking a dumb number of hard to get resource and assume that's something I would like to do. But then I realized, you know what? I have been sitting on a lot of obsidian, plus a couple shulker boxes full. So you know what? I would love to have a giant nether portal in my world. Let's go ahead and let's do that today. So I guess welcome back to another episode of the Minecraft Bedrock Updated Adventures Let's Play, the weekly update as to what's been going on in my survival world. And just outside my house, I do have a sky height sugarcane farm, and the sugarcane farm sits next to this very perfect, in my opinion at least, flat land. This flat land is great for killing mobs when it's dark and for collecting non-hostile mobs when it's not dark, apparently including baby pandas. How cute. But also, it's going to be a perfect place because of the fact that I have this big wall between the old world generation from 2012 and the new world generation, which isn't very new anymore because it's from 2014. I think the perfect way to divide these two things, besides just having a big wall, would be having a giant portal. I mean, I have a giant nether cube over there that already has an old style gold farm, so why don't I make this area right here into a giant nether portal? And yeah, I decided to do a little bit of maths because I was kind of curious, like, okay, so if we wanted to make a giant nether portal, how many blocks are we going to need? Like, how big can we go with the, like, 12 stacks of obsidian plus 2 shulker boxes full of it? And you know what? It's interesting because 64 by 64 means you need 64 stacks of it, and I've got just over 64 stacks of obsidian, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a 64 by 64 obsidian cube, and it's not going to be the most precise build in the world, but it is going to be one of the most obsidian consuming. If you're curious as to why, actually, since we need to sleep anyway, let me show you where I got all of this obsidian from, because it seems absurd. You have to mine obsidian by hand, unless you want to barter with piglins, and that requires a gold farm. If you want to get yourself a lot of obsidian, you can do it that kind of semi-automatic way, or you could also destroy one of these end pillars. They go up pretty high, but something a lot of people don't realize because they don't destroy them all the way down. Actually, I don't blame you for not knowing, but they actually go all the way down to pretty much the floor of the world. And I might have mined not just a single end pillar, but if you look over here, I'm pretty much most of the way through a second one. Oh, entirely through a second one. And I've been working on a third one recently too. And there's also a couple of, like, you can see there's a couple of, like, combined pillars that are really ugly. I've got to destroy those ones as well. Once those end pillars are destroyed, I'll have much more obsidian. More obsidian than I know what to do with because I don't intend to make a gold farm. So just in case you think, like, man, that sure is wasteful, Toycat. Well, one, I like wasteful things anyway, so not going to convince me otherwise, but two, this actually isn't a wasteful project in my opinion. Anyway though, I need to make myself my big portal over here. As you can probably already tell, it's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, this is going to be where the very portal is centered. We're going to have a 2x3 portal, which is way up there somewhere. And now we need to make sure it's an equal distance from both of these points. Actually, just make that easier. We'll place one more obsidian there. These are the two central blocks at 64 and minus 63 respectively. And then we want to go like 31 blocks in each direction from here. So we go all the way out to 95, I guess that would be, in this direction, and then we go out on that side and we place a bunch of obsidian. Most of this video is going to be placing obsidian, but that's fine. It's an opportunity, the Let's Play is an opportunity, as you all know, not only to play some Minecraft and work on some mildly concerning and confusing things, but also to talk about what's been going on in the world, as well as life, the universe, and everything in between. Wow, been a while since we said that, huh? But yeah, I like the, you know, like a lot of people use Let's Plays as like this, you know, opportunity to like slowly slide through the game. To me, Minecraft is about the end game. The end game has a lot of fun to it. Obviously, it requires some more content, and like you could work on that in a lot of ways. But what I think is kind of an underrated part of the game is, you know, once you have some resources, working on some big stuff. Like, but to me, a big part of the end game, a big part of Minecraft is working on some fun things. And obviously, you need to vary up those fun things. You can't just pretend you have infinite resources. And, you know, in some ways, you can get certain types of resources, but working on the sorts of things that you want to build can be a lot of fun. And to some extent, that's why I like having the one long-term world. I think starting up, this last week I've been up to a lot of speedrunning. Starting up new worlds and like working from there is a lot of fun. The most challenging parts of Minecraft are some of the most fun parts, and that's why I recommend speedrunning to anyone who hasn't seen any of that. It's a lot of fun. Totally want to check it out. But I also think that I think a lot of fun can come through challenge, but also sometimes Minecraft can be that perfect chill game, and it works as a chill game because there's very little stress. It's mostly about expressing your creativity, doing what you want to do, putting work in to get some good reward out. Again, the fact that it mirrors life in that way is something I've always found beautiful, in a way that I can never truly express in words without sounding kind of dumb. But yeah, the Let's Play's opportunity to talk about a lot of things, do like a mini podcast style thing, as well as explain what's been going on the last week. I don't have a vlog series on this channel, but a lot of people curious, like, so what's been going on, Toycat? And the year is 2021, the year's 2023. Things don't really change day to day anymore, do they, right? But basically, it's, these days, especially this last week, I've still been in international quarantine, so I've been at home by myself. I'm actually, interesting enough, like, not only is it basically like an honor system quarantine in the UK, but like you're allowed to leave if you need to get groceries and you can't otherwise. So like, I could obviously like be bending rules or whatever if I wanted to, but like I've been inside mostly because like, that's not hugely different from how my life is anyway. I think about that a lot, about how like, like introverts this year are like, oh no, you're telling me that I have an excuse to cancel parties, and oh no, you're telling me that like, my small gatherings that I do want to have are the only ones that are legal. Oh, I hate that so much. It's like it's a very specific type of person that is being taxed by whatever rules exist. Basically, we're basically saying extroverts, you're killing the planet right now. You gotta stop what you're doing, ignoring that it's like a personality type or whatever. But I'm glad because it's not me. Let's not focus on the philosophical implications of taking one group of in society in particular, and let's instead focus on the fact that like, yeah, I've been enjoying my time at home. I've been speedrunning so much, like to the point where it can't be healthy anymore. Like I played, damn it, mining these blocks away. It's not that long of a thing, but it's not something we want to do if we can avoid it. Misplacing obsidian, one of the most painful blocks to misplace. Like more painful than glass even, once you have good tools, I would say. See, glass is a great example, by the way, of like, once you're in the late game of Minecraft, once you're in the phase where you can kind of goof off and do whatever you want, breaking glass isn't that much of a pain. I mean, I had to make myself a hoe to do it, as you've all seen last week. I didn't even address the fact that my end is not covered in glass anymore. That's a question I get a lot, but it's going to be recovered in glass soon. It's just going to take a lot of time, motivation, and power. And the key theme of the Let's Play is like, whatever people expect me to do, I like to do the opposite. I guess you could argue this wasn't the opposite of that, but like, someone said that very jokingly, being like, oh, it's something like you would do. And I was like, what if it's something I would do? What about that? You don't see that coming, do you? Which, at some point, trying to not follow people's expectations can cause more harm than good. But I've yet to reach that point. But yes, this past week I've had a little bit of family drama. I know in America it's like Thanksgiving week or whatever. I don't understand your holidays. I always try to, and I'm like, ooh, that makes a lot of sense. But I don't entirely get it. But basically, in the UK, the big equivalent of Thanksgiving is Christmas. But it's weird to say that because Americans also have Christmas. So you're just doubling down on your Christmas, which I think, very, very stereotypical to be like, there's that one meal a year where, there's that one day a year where you have a mega excessive meal and it's fine. And then America's like, no, 2 meals a year. We're having 2 turkey days, which, I guess is entirely fine, right? Anyway, so, I find Thanksgiving confusing, but that's okay. Who doesn't find Thanksgiving confusing? But what I do understand is the kind of like, there's always like a family drama aspect. Like people always say like, oh yeah, talking politics of the family, as if talking politics of the family is a good idea. Like who does that, by the way? But there is something that I find interesting, like family politics, like not talking about the system of governments with your family, but there's this like, how your family get along. With any group of people, there are people that like each other more in that group and people who like each other less. If you don't think that's true, then sorry, everyone in your friend group hates you equally, and everyone in your friend group is like, someone else must like this guy because we keep hanging out with them. But like, like friend groups are really like lots of intimate connections bonded by the fact that they don't overlap. Like, I like 2 people, but the 2 people I like 3 people each, and I'm only one of their 3 people, and then you can see how that kind of expands. It's like a really rare and like kind of happy thing when your friend, to me at least, like I find it rare and happy when like, oh yeah, one of your friends, one of your friends' best friends is one of your other friends. Wow, that works out perfectly. Why are there ender pearls in here? You know, choose not to question it. I guess I must have taken this away recently, but yeah, basically, so that I've been dealing with like the family politics of my Christmas this year, and it's funny because I guess this is that real thing about growing up where you assume everyone's an adult and in control all the time, and then you get older and you realize like, oh, they just hide it from you. And so this year my mother, mi madre, I think that would, is that Spanish? I don't know. Also, I can't make this jump. Let's just fly up. Let's be honest. I don't mind wasting a firework if I don't have to try and do that jump one more time. See, if I miss that jump in a speed run, I'm dead. It's over. GG. I missed that run there. I lose 4 seconds. Not even embarrassing. Which is actually why playing too much late game Minecraft only actually like weakens your skills over time. I think it's worth like, even if you have a long-term world, like playing a new world every now and then, like practicing the basics, seeing what you're missing. It's always it's a good thing to do. Taking yourself out of your comfort zone is great. But something that doesn't happen, you know, something your parents perhaps don't do, is take themselves out of their comfort zone. And so yeah, one of the interesting things is my mother's been very upset because like there's a family gathering usually of extended family, something for Christmas, and this year the plan was like, oh yeah, but you can't. She got a dog this year, and she's upset she can't bring the dog to Christmas. And first of all, you know, dog people who insist on bringing their dog everywhere, like without offense to my parents, they're never gonna watch this. They're old. Old people don't watch YouTube. It's a well-known thing. If you're old and you watch this YouTube channel, I'm sorry. Apologies to you right there. But it's like it's, you know, it's kind of like so in response to that, she's like, well, I'm just not coming to Christmas at all. I'm gonna host my own Christmas party. And it's like, man, you know, this you think to yourself like, oh no, this is, you know, like this sort of like, oh, I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna show them. You think that's like an immature, like, you know, like something you do when you're young and your ego is really hurt. But no, people have egos all the way through life. They just have different groups of people and like different levels of sophistication to try and hide the ego, to kind of like try and put something behind it. And it's interesting because conflict between people is like the most common thing that we do as people. We come into conflict with each other all the time. And I think conflict resolution and like working out how to solve it is one of the most like simple yet under-taught things. It's kind of like critical thinking, right? Like so many people just share whatever they see if it sounds correct because they're like, oh yeah, I mean, it sounds correct, therefore it's probably correct. Whereas like you should be we should be ideally teaching people like, oh yeah, maybe you should look at that twice. Maybe because it sounds correct, you should think about whether it's correct before sharing misinformation or whatever. But people don't do that on a big enough scale that it germinates on a very scary level. And you know, one of the other things I think is like, you know, people come into conflict all the time. I notice it nonstop, and it's like, come on, let's not. Like, step one should be let's not. I've always been like, I guess a pacifist in the sense that like, you know, most of the time humans fight, it's over dumb things. Like, I can understand, you know, even though I don't think you should, I can understand when you're like, oh yeah, well I think these people literally want me dead, so I'm going to kill them. That's dumb, but at least understandable. You're like, okay, you're having some grandeur delusion or whatever the term would be. Also, so yeah, this is just imagine right now. Let's give it a peek. What would this look like if it was that high? I mean, we're definitely not halfway yet, but you can see just the scale of the obsidian is just so much, right? There's just so much obsidian, and we're not even at the height where we're halfway there. But that's half the fun, isn't it? Okay. That's fun. I'm probably gonna have to bring some dirt over here and patch this up. Or we could leave it be and deal with it later. You know, that's my favorite solution. But yeah, the life skills that you try to learn and that we try to like teach it to children, they're not things that all adults have. You know, like you probably have more of them as an adult than you do as a child. But it's funny, like people always say things like, oh yeah, I find children to be magnificent. You know, like I find them to be fascinating. And I always look at that and I'm like, that's weird. children are objectively just worse adults. Like, you ever speak to a child, they sometimes say interesting things, but it's interesting because it's shocking. It's like, you know what? I find parrots to be interesting when they talk because I don't expect parrots to talk. You know, I heard a parrot say like, you know, I heard it say something super stereotypical recently when I was in California. It could say one phrase and it repeated that phrase over and over again, and I was like, wow, Polly really does want a cracker. That's insane. But like, it doesn't mean I want to have a conversation with that bird. It doesn't mean that bird is actually more impressive than you know, like a child. You know, even a child can say more than that bird could say, and you know, that bird can say more than a rock can say. If a rock makes a sound that's anything like words, you're like, whoa, that's impressive. But it's impressive because you don't expect it. It's I don't know. It's like I think sometimes like our relative expectations cloud our absolute expectations, and maybe that shouldn't be the case. Also, let's fill in this little portal over here. Can we even do that? Oh, it's gonna be a pain, isn't it? Okay, no, it's not gonna be a pain. Nice and easy. And let's now work out where the middle of this portal should be. I think it should be like 31 blocks up, or 30. So let's go to 94, and then let's actually build this portal in here, shall we? So go all the way up to 94, and let's just see what that's gonna look like already, because I'm starting to realize the scale and potentially dumbness of this entire project. But you know, again, always something you gotta consider. But yeah, the other thing I've been up to this past week, actually no, it's been mostly speedrunning and dealing with random family stuff. My mother's just bought a house that she's like, you know, for the first time. Very excited about it. Calls me a lot. It's kind of it's an interesting relationship I have where, like, again, realize I guess this is just that same thing. Like, it will never not shock me to realize that, like, adults are just people who pretend they have their stuff together. And then you wonder, like, is pretending you have stuff together really a good skill? And the answer actually is a resounding yes. Like, you know what? It's better to pretend than to not pretend. Also, I don't think we can light this thing from the side. Oh, no, it's lit up. We're good. So now we can look at this, and we can get a good feeling for what... Oh, my God, it's going to be a big... Honestly, actually, I kind of like it how it is right now. It's... It looks like I really didn't understand portals in the slightest. But, we're gonna at least fill in those corners, and then we have to do a whole nother batch after that. Yeah, this is a big project, huh? There's a lot of obsidian to be placed. Every one of these blocks takes 12 seconds or something like that to mine with a diamond pickaxe, and we're just placing them like it's candy. Oh, the joy of being rich, huh? So something I did this week. This is very much like lighthearted, I guess, but every now and then you hear like some names and you hear about some ideas and stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, that's fascinating. Like, oh yeah, I just heard about this thing called the what's it called? The Communist Manifesto. Like Das Kapital. Wow, I just read this great book that reaffirms my existing world beliefs, and therefore I think it's good. But anyway, so like that's a thing that happens a bunch, right? People read about some ideas and they're like, wow, this person who lived all these years ago was like brilliant, like so much better than we have today. And I do actually, you know, even though we in the West we have like the super individualist culture, I do think it's actually really impressive that I think it's impressive the work that some people could do in the 1700s, or you know, in the 1900s or something. Like over 100 years ago, with no computers, no internet, no anything like that, which you could argue is less distractions, but anyway, like people were able to have these incredible ideas that have lasted this long. Like you know, if you're in philosophy, like Immanuel Kant or whatever, like he's, you know, like a lot of the ideas from that are like still alive and discussed and come up to this day. Every now and then I'm talking about something and it's like, oh yeah, there's a huge thing from Immanuel Kant on that. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, like The Whole Good Place, an entire TV show, it's kind of trying to explain to you a lot of stuff that comes from him. And it's interesting because like when you hear like a name like, oh yeah, the Karl Marxes of the world, the Immanuel Kants, the Adam Smiths or whatever, you know, you think these people are like super. You have a picture of them in your mind, but then if you actually look them up, something I found interesting is on Wikipedia they always have like the best known picture of someone, and so someone I've always found interesting, like their ideas to be interesting, is someone called John Locke. He's a lot of his ideas were used in like the founding documents of America because he's like a 17th century political philosopher. It's an interesting fellow to read into it. But if you look at his picture on Wikipedia if you want after this. Wait, we're gonna edit in a picture of him right now And like this great thinker who's had all these ideas that have lasted so much longer than his life looked like this. And you know, the greater lesson from here should be like, oh yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. But I kind of want to reverse that on its head and say, you know, we should judge a book by its cover. Before I tell you any John Locke quotes, I want to show you this. You know, before I show you, before I talk to you about any Karl Marx quotes, I want to show you this guy right here. You know, before I show you anything from, I don't know, what's his name, Sigmund Freud. I want you to know this, and also his deep obsession with doing things to his mother that maybe are pretty important. I don't think that's actually a good idea for knowledge. I think knowledge should obviously be irrespective of who you are, but it's also like a fascinating, like, oh yeah, we do, if we can do that looking at the past and know that we're wrong, why can't we do that looking at the present? Like it's so many like mini biases. Like if someone looks like they belong somewhere in a role, if someone looks like they belong as a particular job role, you're like, oh yeah, that person is clearly a firefighter. That person's clearly a plumber or something else like that. And your expectations of them, you know, that's fine by itself, but your expectations of someone can actually shift how that person is. I think if you think someone looks like they're funny, you know, you might like look to them and like wait for them to make jokes, and then they'll start to get those cues and they'll start being funnier, etc. I think we as society actually do shape people in a surprisingly huge way. I think you know, we always like to believe that we're 100% in control of our destiny. Most people believe that they're not susceptible to advertising, for instance. But just because you believe you're not susceptible to advertising, it doesn't make you not susceptible. You don't just magically like, oh yeah, I don't think that it has an impact on me. I mean, they're paying, you know, advertising is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I'm sure across the world it's a trillion-dollar industry. But like, oh, that doesn't affect me. Just because they're spending trillions and they're not getting me or anyone else, like, oh, I'm not dumb enough to buy something just because I see it. And it's like, well, you misunderstand advertising. Like, at one point in time, advertising actually was what people, you know, who think they're immune to it, think it is. Like, oh yeah, at one point, advertising was this model where you just say, here is my product, here's why it's good, please buy my product. But that's way less effective than like modern day advertising, which actually uses psychology and philosophy. And so like there's a lot of like actual thinking to it to be like, oh yeah, we want to position ourselves to be the obvious choice when you think of a certain thing. Like the reason Coke advertises is not because they think every time they do a Coke ad, you'll buy a can of Coke. Even if that was true, if you bought one can of Coke when you saw a Coke ad, they spend more on advertising than would even make a profit if every single consumer of their ads went out and bought Coke. That actually might not be true of every single person. If every single person who could buy a Coke, who wanted a Coke in the slightest, you know, who was within distance of one could buy one, let's say. But you know, that's not their whole model. Their model is convince when you want a soft drink, because your brain, based on the sugar and the whatever stuff, like you're like somewhat addicted to it. When you want a soft drink, one of the first go-tos is a Coke. When you have a party, what do you think everyone likes? Like one of the few bellwether tastes for whatever reason is going to be a Coke, and they know that and they build into that. Same with car brands used to like sell themselves on the reliability of the cars. Like our cars are the greatest. They've got AWS and BWD and 8WD and ABS and power steering. But then they realized, like, instead what you do, the much better plan is you just associate your brand with values people want, so that when they're about to drop a lot of money, how many cars do you buy in your lifetime? Like, you know, 2 or 3, and that's if you're wealthy. Maybe if you're really wealthy, you buy it. I feel like most people don't buy many cars in their life, is what I'm trying to say. It's going pretty well so far. I'm really liking this progress so far. Like, I feel like you can make like, it looks like a dragon right now, right? Without intending to at all. To me, this looks exactly like an Ender Dragon head. What do you reckon? Do you see it, editor? You seeing this? I don't think the assistant sees it. Anyway, was I right? Did I nail your guess? I don't know if I did. Anyway, let's get all this obsidian out there, and let's place some more down. So we're 1 shulker box down, and we've still got a whole extra shulker box we've got to load up into there. You know what? We might start to run out, and it's going to be sad. But let's hop back up, and let's just kind of finish by saying, because you know what? Advertising is something I'm so interested in, not just because I've always run my livelihood of advertising from all the advertising sites, etc., but also because I just find it to be the most interesting model that like has accidentally. I used to be super skeptical of it too, even though I've always made my living from advertising. I used to be like skeptical that like, I never buy anything from advertising anyway. Like, you think you're so smart, but like thinking you're not susceptible to it makes you more susceptible because you don't counter the biases in your head. And that's because one of the main goals is to just try and be the obvious brand of choice for a particular thing. And I've actually got a direct example of this working in the form of YouTube because a long time ago I used to be in a few people's videos. Like I was just hanging out playing Minecraft 360 with friends who are YouTubers, and I'd end up being in people's videos, and then some of those people would blow up, and then their videos would blow up too. And even though I don't think I was even linked in the description. I just like be appearing in the video somewhere. Just you would see the gamer tag toycat, and you'd be like, oh, there's toycat, and maybe there'd be some funny joke about toycat in the video. Those videos did nothing for me in the short term. I had the data to say, oh yeah, I don't have more views today off that video than I did yesterday, even though the video did well. But the thing that did start to happen is a lot of people would start to like be like, oh yeah, I found your channel, but I know this, and now I also know you, and then I start to realize, oh yeah, people found, like on their homepage, they recommended a video, and they thought, oh, I know that toycat guy, I'll watch this one. Like, just a tiny bit of familiarity pushes you over the edge to make a decision you already want to choose from. Like, if you're at the store and you don't know what to buy in some unfamiliar brand, like, oh god, you're buying you've got to buy your girlfriend some tampons, and you're like, oh no, I don't know, I'm not in the market for these very often, and I'm just very confused. Like, oh god, what ones does she want? How do I make sure I get the good ones? Is it the expensive ones? Maybe it's the expensive ones, that could work, but maybe they're not so good. And then you see something that you saw an ad for, and you're like, I'll get those ones. I mean, obviously you probably have instructions for which ones to get because it's very specific. Let's not dive into that one in particular, but like that's a market you have no familiarity with, and then you just think, oh yeah, saw this ad. If you're in the market for like some, again, if you wanted to buy some makeup because you were told to, that was a thing you thought was a good idea, you'll think about the brands that you're most familiar with. Even though there's a lot of ones out there, the ones that jump to mind as premium are the ones you're like, oh, this is good. It'll be a good gift. It'll be a good thing to buy. And if you're thinking for yourself, like, oh, I want to buy a razor, I don't know, I'll get the one that's the one company that sells all the razors in the world, because if they're the biggest razor company, they can't be too bad, right? And they're always telling me they're the best a man can get. And it's like the power of just telling people you exist. It makes them letting people know you exist makes them familiar with you for when they need to know about you. This is why every real estate agent, I hate real estate agents, by the way. Sorry if you watch my videos and you're one of those. I think it's one of the coolest jobs in terms of like how the commission works, etc. But I've also found every real estate agent to bother me non-stop and make me hate their guts and wish that I could block their, but they use different phone numbers, and they always tell me about, like, I give them my specifications. They're like, oh, I know you wanted a house in this area, but how about a flat that is more expensive, and also it's over there in that area, and also it's got a different number of. It's like, why would you do that? What do you mean? Like, and obviously, like, it doesn't matter to them if you say no. Them wasting your time has no cost. That's like an externality to them. Anyway, it's something I think about a lot. But something else I think about a lot is kind of comparison. So I've been speedrunning, and one of the things that I've been enjoying about speedrunning, because right now, the current version of Minecraft Bedrock, you can't break records on it. It's statistically impossible unless you roll so many dice so often, and even then, like, it was already a good record for the version. You won't be able to break the current world record from PlayStation 4 in the current version of Minecraft. So you might say, what's the point in playing then? And to me, the point in playing, despite the fact that it seems impossible to break the world record, is I love breaking my own record in Minecraft. And it's an interesting concept because it seems weird to, like, comparing yourself is like a very human behavior. We compare ourselves all the time. Like, people who think they're, like, who look at, like, I know someone who's not doing so well, and they're like, yeah, I'm doing better than you. Like, there are people who look at homeless people, they're like, yeah, that's just, look how much better I am than them. They're, like, morally inferior to me. That's like a real whole category of people. People who look at people on lower incomes and go, one of those, I can't believe you're one of those plebs that only earns X amount a year. And it sounds like, like the fact that, even though that sounds joking and no one's like, most people aren't that, I don't know, out of touch in their heads. A lot of people do have that kind of like judging people by some factor of comparison. Like, are you better or worse than me? Here is the metric we're using. You know, height, or weight, or or income level, or like how nice a phone, TV, car you have. Finding some metric to compare yourself to others. And you can tell it's a metric people care about because the number of people who will buy cars they can't afford, the number of people who will buy, things that they can't, like, that aren't smart for them. Like, there are much smarter purchases to make that, the best thing money can buy is financial security. The second best thing money can buy is the ability to have more money in the future. And some people don't want either of those things and instead want to use it to impress people. And although personally, like, I'm not, that's not what my goal for money is. And for a while you just look at it and you're like, oh, so there's just some people who are dumb who think that's a good use of money. I don't think that is the truth. I think to them, like to someone who values those things, that actually is a good, worthwhile proposition. Oh yeah, this is, this is getting places now, huh? This is getting some good places now. But I think you actually do get something that you want when you buy some status item. Even though, so why do people do the inefficient thing? Because it's all about the comparison. They want, when they are compared to other people, they want to be compared with favorably. The reason there is a world record is because people see someone, people want to be the person that is seen as the best. Anyone who compares to the world record, in that category at least, like, if you try to compare yourself to a world record holder in the category they're a world record holder in, you will always be inferior, they will always be superior. That's a big drive. Trying to do better, trying to be the best, be the best they can be, but also be the best anyone can be, is a huge honor that people train their whole lives to be an Olympian or something. And it seems absurd, but because people like comparisons. We like to compare ourselves to other people in a lot of ways. I don't even necessarily know if it's to other people, but we like to compare. We like to seem better than something else. And this is where a lot of the world's problems come from, I think. When people compare themselves to like some billionaire and they come across unfavorably, it's like, man, that sure does suck. Like, people always look at, like, when people say, like, oh yeah, people are just hoarding wealth and it's bad for the economy and that's why I hate them. It's like, no, actually, Apple has like $1 trillion in cash, not in stock, like in a liquid asset that's like, if you converted it, you'd be lowering the price and you're actually just taking cash from somewhere else. No, they have actual, like, cash lying around that they could be spending and they're not. But it doesn't attract any criticism because it's like, oh yeah, that's, first of all, it's Apple. But second of all, it's a company. You can't compare yourself to a company, but you can compare yourself to, I don't know, Jeff Bezos. He's a person. You can compare yourself to Bill Gates. I mean, sure, he might be a billionaire, but at least you're not implanting microchips into people. I tried to respond to a few, like, I saw some posts. Twitter does this really dumb thing where it tells you about, like, trending tags and some news that we're going to tell you about and insist that you read because Twitter is a news site now. Even though we claim to be a social media and not a publisher, we're gonna have editorials and try and encourage you to read our articles. Anyway, it's a whole bizarre thing Twitter does. And I read some, like, normal people's thoughts about all these sorts of things because, I'm curious, but what does the normal person think? And I'm always, like, horrified by, like, how weird and wacky, like, some of these things are. Like, someone was like, oh, can't believe we're in lockdown. This is all bloody Bill Gates' fault. And it's like, yeah, that's it's a weird place you've got into there, but fair enough, I guess. And so it's interesting to read into these things. But I think the interesting thing about humans is we love to compare. We actively are comparing ourselves all the time. The fact that, like, no matter how low down you are, like, the sort of person who does compare themselves to a homeless person and go, yeah, I'm morally superior, is someone who is probably on a low income themselves. The sort of person who is on, like, high income is often the sort of person who, like, is like, oh yeah, I don't have much money, because they're comparing themselves to someone who earns even more. Like, oh yeah, I don't have a lot of money, compared to a billionaire at least. I don't have a lot of money compared to the Bill Gateses of the world. Because, there's always, unless you are literally Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. And even then, like, Jeff Bezos, the richest human being in the world by net worth, because of his money being all invested in one company, he is very, very not generationally wealthy. He has to do well as head of that company for his money. Obviously, like, he could, if his value loses 95%, he's still immeasurably wealthy. But, like, that's a lot harder than Bill Gates, where his money is divested across the economy. There's a lot of cash, a lot of different options. And the reason I'm saying this whole thing is not like a whole, like, oh yeah, I love I love me some billionaires and would love to talk about the different types. But it's because of this weird, like, we can always compare to other people, and we use those comparisons to drive ourselves forwards most of the time. Like, the sort of rich person who looks at someone slightly richer and goes, yeah, I'm not rich compared to him. They want to be richer. They want to make some more money so they can be as rich as that person. You know, the sort of person, you know, like, who looks at a speedrunner and is like, yeah, I could do that. I have non-stop people responding to my in my live stream chat who are like, I guess clearly they've watched some form of live stream, you know, from before someone else, and they're like, oh, I'd be over here by now. I'm so good at this. They've never speedrun their lives, but like, they're convinced they can. They're convinced they're better. We like to be better than people. We have so many ways that we show that. And ooh, we're almost at the end of this, by the way. We have so many ways we like to show that we think we're better than people, that we think we're you know, doing that sort of thing. And I think that when you know, like, that's why when people get hung up on the wrong comparisons, that's where a lot of like life's problems come from. Like, rather than comparing yourself to someone that you're not comparable to, I think the simplest thing, you know, like, we need to feel like we're better than something. And I think like doing it to other humans is toxic because, you know, statistically the world can, you know, like, even if the world is truly 100% equal, people do most things in the world arguably in service of making themselves more equal. If there was a perfectly, again, like, I know we're talking about some weird, dumb hypothetical here. There was some perfectly equal world. Every dollar you earned would be making everyone else slightly less, you know, like, well off in the grand scheme of things. And obviously you might say, well, that's actually fine because everyone would have like the minimum standard of whatever else. But it's like, you know what? If you look at the most unequal countries in the world and you compare them to the most equal countries in the world, you'd rather be in the bottom, you know, in terms of like on a global level, in terms of absolute levels. You want to be in the bottom of a country that is wealthy rather than you want to be at the top of a country that's equal. There's very few exceptions to that policy, but like, I don't know, if you look at Eritrea, for example, it's like very relatively equal country, but still, you know, top 50% is very dire in that country compared to bottom 50% in a unequal country. You know, like, we could use the US as an example, but like anywhere else, like, there's a reason that people are willing to leave their countries and in well-paid positions in some cases to go to a country and be at the bottom of the rung, because being at the, you know, that is still an upgrade. Like, it's a weird proposition, but it's one that makes a lot of sense. Also, I could be wrong, but I think it's not centered correctly. Am I wrong? I don't know how to entirely confirm that. Let's just take a little step back and let's see what we've done here. Yeah, I think even though, you know, the guy who did this, who by the way was clearly a console player because he had a skin of Steve in a tuxedo. I recognize that sort of thing on Isipit, by the way. I think they did like a nether portal kind of thing. I think rather than having a nether portal shape, I think I want to have a square, even though that'll make it slightly wider by comparison. I think I want to do it anyway. So we're gonna add a whole extra layer to this thing, and then a whole extra layer to the square around it. So let's just, oh, this is such a hard thing to land in. I guess I didn't appreciate how hard this is. You know, using this nether portal is very hard. That much is true. No, we didn't land it this time. Okay, what we're gonna do, here's my foolproof plan for landing in there. It's gonna hurt me quite a bit. Do I have feather falling boots on? I do have feather falling. So we line up with the portal, and then I actually don't know if this does work. I guess we're gonna find out right now. We fall, and we kind of go inwards. No, okay, that didn't work. You know, landing in this nether portal. I should just place some ladders or stack myself up, but I like this challenge. I'm gonna make it work. There we go, I got this. And then when we're really close, we kind of just slow down, go real wide angle, and we're in. Okay, now, no. Okay. I don't know how I stopped that, but I did. No, okay, I lied. So it just takes me to this portal, which means now I have to get right back to the... Life is hard, okay? Life is hard. Okay, next attempt. we have to mine a block as soon as we're in there. That's all we have to do. I don't know which way we're mining it, but as long as the portal's dead, not much more can go wrong from that. Yeah, we got this. We got this. Okay, mine this block right here. Go. Portal's gone. So this block over here, I think. Yeah, we have to. If we're gonna go 3x3, this is the one we want to do it. And then what we do is we make one extra block on that side to make it a perfect square again. So let's get out there. I think it might be in a perfect square to begin with, actually. Oh no, it wasn't. It wasn't. We're very much not perfect. You know, nobody's perfect, but we can try our best. But yeah, I think like comparison is like there's a common phrase, like, comparison is the thief of joy. If instead of focusing on your own achievements, you focus on, like, a lot of other people's, I find there's this, like, deep sadness that can come. If instead of focus, like, on YouTube, it's very easy to, like, especially, like, people will do this for me. Like, they'll be like, oh, yeah, you suck compared to X YouTuber. Or, like, you know, if you look at the view numbers and therefore, you know, which is the metric that determines payment, by the way, you know, you can look at that and you can be like, oh, yeah, this guy earns, like, 10 times as much because he knows that much better about the YouTube algorithm. But rather than doing that, it's like, you know what, why don't I compare myself to the fact that, you know what, it looks weird now. I like it, but it feels not centered. Is something wrong? Is it, like, too high up? I think it's too high up. Oh, because the base of that is the middle. So the base of that needs to be, like... Okay, wait, if it's 3 blocks wide. I think we need to add 3 more layers to the top of this. Do I have 3 more layers of obsidian? Let's try 1 more layer, and let's see if that magically does it, actually. But anyway, yeah, I think comparison is the thief of joy is a important phrase to always remember. Because, you know, I really do think it's true. I really think the more we try to compare ourselves with others, the more we'll find, like, you can always find some way someone's better than you. Because that, as humans, we are specialized in our own different fields. Even if you think, even take the best speedrunner in the world, take the best long jump runner in the world, they're not the best at, you know, I don't know, let's pick a dumb thing. They're not the best at English. You know, they don't have the greatest, you know, they can't word their things the best. They're not the funniest person in the world. They're not the, you know, the wealthiest person in the world is not the most athletic. He's not going to live the longest. He's not going to have the, he's probably not even the most, he's not going to have the most enjoyable life, right? You know, people aren't the best at everything. And I think, like, because we need to compare to something in life, obviously, like, you know, like, I think if you're going to do something, like, on a personal level, like, sure, we can argue on a societal level, there are still things we got to fix, right? That's A-okay if we want to believe that. But I think at the very least on an individual level, you got to look at things and be like, okay, so we got to compare to someone. Like, if comparison is unhealthy, but also it's what drives us forwards. Competition is one of the great things that pushes humans to do great things. And if we're going to say that, then I think we should say, okay, if we have to compare to something, for our own mental sakes, you know, what we should be comparing to is, you know, like, for example, just a nice easy one here, we should compare to the past versions of us, you know, like, an easy one is, like, compared to other societies, like, in the same, you know, I mentioned there's a lot of people who have moved from, you know, their country to be in your country, just because, you know, even if they have to be at the bottom rung of your country and they were at the top rung of theirs, because it's that worthwhile. I'm not going to name countries because it'll seem like I'm being like, oh, so you're saying that country sucks. No, I'm saying there are people who believe that that is a more worthwhile proposition for them. And doesn't that say something interesting that, like, oh yeah, even if you're in the bottom of this country, you're still killing it compared to most of the world, which is something that, like, I'm always so grateful for the birth lottery. Like, the biggest chance in your life is where you happen to be born. And if you happen to be born in a country that you really like, then good job there, you know. Even if you don't really like it, like, it is... You know, what is wrong? This seems not square to me. It seems like it's too bottom left. Am I crazy there? I think I'm crazy there. Maybe because I did center this on this one block here. So, right now it goes from minus 64 to minus 96. So that's 32 blocks that way. Yeah, 32 blocks that way. And it goes from minus 64. It should go to minus 32, therefore, right? And it does. Oh, no, it goes to minus 31. So it's 1 block wider on the right than it is on the left. Is that correct? If so, that would mean it would go to the bottom left. But I think it's going to the bottom left. I don't even know anymore. Yeah, no, I think we need 1 more block on the right there. Okay, one more block on the left, sorry. And then we should be good. You know what? Making squares is hard. This is why people don't do this, I guess. You know, I don't know why. It seems like a shame that people don't do it, but indeed it is true that they don't. Please don't fall in the water. Okay, we got it. So, just to kind of round out, I think comparing ourselves to, like, that, but, like, I don't like that either. That feels like mean. That feels like we're against global equality, right? Like, that sucks. I don't like that at all. So instead, what if we, like, okay, let's compare ourselves to the past. The craziest thing right now is, like, even if you're in one of the worst countries today, you still have an amount of money, a style of living that is, like, comparable to how someone in the wealthiest part of society would have lived a few hundred years ago. Maybe besides the servants bit. Oh, you can still get that pretty cheap depending on where you're at. But that's something we should always be in mind, that, like, we are living, statistically speaking, in the best period of history right now that we've ever been able to live in. And that should be, you know, making sure that, like, being able to make that comparison and then saying, okay, now let's compare ourselves to ourselves. Let's make it better. Let's make sure the future can look back and they can say, this, you know, right now is the best time of living. I'd hate to live in 2020 because the future is so much better than that. And 1920, wow, that sucks even worse. Like, making sure that time always gets better, making sure things always get better, should be a very clear and key priority. And watching out for the things that could make it worse is something we should also do as part of that. Because I think we owe it to all the people who made our life the way it is now. Also, I like that this actually feels like it's a giant cube, but it's just a portal. I like this a lot. I think this was a good thing we did today. And I'm going to end on that message, that we should try and make sure that the future is the best it can be, so we can make sure that people look back at today. I think our dream future would be one where people go, oh, 2020, can you imagine? The only computers they carried around was a little rectangle in their pocket. Oh, so poor, so tragic. You know, how did they even brain interface with each other? They didn't even have neural links in their eye sockets where they could send little messages direct brain to brain. Oh, can't. How did anything get done? People should look at the present and think it's terrible because we made the future that much better. Or maybe they shouldn't. You know, that's your opinion. I hate the future. I'm not having children. These aren't my cares I have right here. But you know what I do have cares about? You. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Have a nice day, and I'll see you all next week. Unless I die in a house fire. Goodbye.